Welcome guys, you're watching Dirt Bike Channel. I'm your host Kyle Brotherson, and today we're going to be talking about clutch lever and brake lever setup on our dirt bikes. Stick around. I was in the midst of setting this Husky up, this Husqvarna TE300i up, and I realized that I get quite a bit of email about setting up and what to do with brake levers and clutch levers and things. And so while I am in the mode of doing it, I was doing it on this bike, I did it on the bike over there, and I've had to do it on a couple different bikes recently. And so it got me thinking I should probably just do a video about clutch lever and brake lever setup, because there are definitely some things that you can do in order to make sure that your controls are in the right place as far as up and down placement also. But something that a lot of people don't think about is how far in or out you have your levers can make a big difference as well. And what I mean is, if you put the levers in the right place and you do the right things, you'll break a lot less of them. I can't remember the last time that I broke a lever all the way off. In fact, I'm not sure that I've broken a lever all the way off. Sometimes I break them at the stress points, which I'll show you here. I'll try to run in a shot of what the stress point is. Sometimes I'll break them at the stress points, but once I started moving my levers in, I stopped breaking them at all, because I'm just hitting the edge here, or I'm just hitting the handlebar here. And a lot of you will say, well, if you run full bark busters, full wraparound guards, then you wouldn't have that problem either, which is true. But full wraparound guards, where I live, it's probably not necessary because I don't have as many tight woods as some of the other people do. So I don't run a full wraparound guard. The other thing is you can break your hands, you break your wrists on a full wraparound guard. I mean, anything can happen, right? But let's bring you in a little bit closer, and I'll show you kind of the general idea of what I'm doing to make sure that I have my brake and clutch lever set up properly, and so that I don't break them nearly as often as I used to when I was first doing this. There are essentially three tips I want to show you here. The first tip is how far in you're going to adjust your levers, and what I mean by that is how far inside the bars are you going to put your lever. What you'll notice is the edge of this, when you get your bike from the factory, this mount will probably be all the way over against your start switch. And what that does is it puts this lever, the end of your lever, way out here against, basically flush with the end of your bar. So what happens is the lever comes in contact with the bar at this, or the lever comes in contact with the ground at the same time the bar does. Now there is this little stress piece right here that can actually come, and that's designed to break off before the rest of this does, and those actually work really well. But if you'll just take and slide your whole clutch perch in just a little bit up until the point where it's what you don't want is, you don't want this part of your lever to start to squish against the grip right here, the donut of the grip. So I bring it in all the way until it's just barely not going to interfere with my donut, and at that point I'm in almost 2 inches from the end of the bar, and that saves my levers a ton. You'll notice I've done the same thing. I'll just swivel the camera over on the other side. You'll notice I've done that possibly even a little bit more on the brake side, because if I look, well, it's almost the same. On the brake side, I only need one finger on it, right? And so I don't need this thing to be all the way out here. I'm gonna move it in, and it actually makes it a little bit easier for me to grab. Sometimes, most of the time, I'm just using one finger. Every once in a while, I'll have to use two, especially on the clutch side. It's occasional that I'll have to use 2 fingers on the clutch side. But if you just shift your brake lever and your clutch lever in, just loosen the mounts and shift them in, that's going to mean you're not going to break your levers off nearly as much. Okay, the next tip I want to talk about is the placement of how far up and down you should set your levers. Now, this is going to be a lot of personal preference here, but a lot of times when I get a bike brand new, it's been set up by some whiz kid, and they've almost got the levers completely level with the bars. The problem with that, and that would be fine if all I ever did was sit down, it would probably be fine. But as I stand up on the bike, now the angle of my wrist it totally changes right here, and I've got my wrist at a really awkward angle to be able to get up and get to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this down just a bit until it gets to a natural position, And I will do this standing up and sitting down until I get it to where it feels in a natural position for me to pull it with one finger while I'm standing up, and it's got to go down just a little bit more. So I'm going to bring it down to right there. Then I'm going to stand up, and there comes a point where that just kind of naturally fits and naturally feels great in this knuckle of my finger right here. So that when I'm sitting down and I've got my elbows up, it feels good. And more importantly, when I stand up, because I'm needing my clutch a crap ton when I stand up, and I want that to be perfectly natural feeling for me when my finger, when I stand up and I pull that clutch. I just want it to feel natural. I don't want to feel an extra kink here in my wrist, and I want it to fit nicely in my fingers with my knuckles. And for me, it's going to be about right there. And you'll notice that's, you know, I always kind of end up a little bit further down on the clutch side than I do on the brake side, but just feel something that's natural to you. It shouldn't be too high and it shouldn't be way too low. It should be in some natural position where when you're standing up and when you're sitting down, you can naturally grab it and it falls into a natural position with the position of your wrist and your hands. That's your second tip right there. Okay, so we've talked about how far inside the bars we're going to adjust these things, as far as how far into the handlebars. We've also talked about, you know, the up and down adjustments, and those are very important. This last tip is also very important, and that has to deal with how tight you put all this together. When I first started doing this, I would have these things cranked down so they couldn't move at all, because I didn't want to, you know, I wanted to get them in exactly the right spot and then crank down on the pinch bolts to make sure it didn't move at all. What I have found, and I think what you will find, is you'll have better results of not breaking levers if you will just be a little bit more careful about how tight you get these things. What the trick is, and you'll have to do some work with a T-handle, and I keep a T-handle, not this big, but I keep a T-handle in my riding pack so that I can do some of this stuff. Because what you want to do is you want to get this so it's just tight enough that it's not moving under normal circumstances, but if you take a digger, it still can move. So if you need to be able to move this with your hand, you need to be able to get under it or over it and be able to just barely move, you know, your levers. And it's a fine-tuned thing, and I'm like, well, that maybe was just a little bit too easy, so I'm just gonna barely put a little bit more torque on that. And what I wanna be able to do is I wanna be able to just barely be able to move it. And this is just about perfect, because now I know if I pound on this thing, it will move. And if I take a digger and there's a lot of pressure put on this thing, it can move. It's not bound to the bar like crazy. So I want it just in that. And sometimes it's easier to move one way, you know, versus the other, but that's where I want this. And it'll take you a little bit of tweaking, you know, with your T-handle on both sides. So you want to check both sides and make sure, see that side is moving perfectly. If I put some good pressure on it, I can move that up and down, but it's not just gonna wiggle. You know, that's something that you're constantly gonna have to check and constantly have to torque. But those are my 3 tips. How far in you're gonna place them. If you just move your handle, if you just move the levers in a little bit away from the end of your bars, you'll be surprised how much of an impact that makes. And then up and down is about comfort and being able to be on controls, and then allowing it to be able to float up and down when you take a digger. That's gonna save your bacon, save your levers bacon a lot. So those are just alternatives if you don't want to run full wraparound handguards, because it is a huge controversial topic. I've done both. I've run full guards. I've run not full guards. More often than not now, I'm resorting to not full wraparound handguards. It's a lot because of the terrain that I ride in. It's not absolutely necessary. Some of the guys around the country are riding in such tight wooded terrain that a full wrap handguard is basically essential. Otherwise, they're going to break their hands every ride they go on. I'm not in that situation. So those are my 3 tips on what, you know, how you might want to be thinking about setting up the levers on your bike. Guys, if you like these videos, then by all means, please take a look down in the description. I have links to certain products that I use, and if you click on those links before you buy anything, it won't cost you any extra, but it will certainly help me support my family, because that's one of the ways that I'm supporting my family right now. Also, please, the more the merrier. More subscriptions, more views. If I have helped you, go ahead and click subscribe. And also, if you're already subscribed, go ahead and click that ringing bell icon to make sure that you're notified when I put out a video, so that you get the notifications from YouTube. You know what I'm talking about. Just click the bell over there. And again, this is only if I'm adding value to your life. If I'm not adding value to your life, or you think I'm a moron, then don't subscribe and don't watch. but I am trying to be, I'm trying to add value to the dirt bike community here, and because I'm so passionate about it, and it's just been a fun thing to do. So if you want to support me more, you could go over to patreon.com. I've got a page over there where you can make a monthly tip amount, and every once in a while we give away dirt bikes. We might be giving away this dirt bike right here, or maybe that dirt bike over there, or maybe some other dirt bike. So stay tuned, because sometimes we give dirt bikes away, and that's a pretty cool thing to do. So anyway, I appreciate you guys watching. I hope you learned something about maybe some ideas of what you can do to set up your levers, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.